There's one story that you told me I'd like to share a little bit. Can you talk about, you said you went to a meet, I think at Oregon, or maybe you were running with Prefontaine. I think one thing you said you ran against Oregon and they had a dope sheet. You said would have dope sheets. These guys are going to get first to last. And I said, what lane is Veney in? Well, he's eighth. I think you said that to me, or you
It
said you
was
ran,
it was it,
people know about Steve Prefontaine, but you said you ran or can you elaborate a little bit? Because that's
yeah,
incredible.
I was a sophomore and Jim had wanted me to get ready for the mile, but our milers, uh, our 800 men had been underperforming, and I had run a PR of 150.7 at a double dual meet at the Coliseum against Stanford. And I had run 408 in the mile. I got pushed around pretty good. So Hal Hartness came up to me and says, if you want Jim to get off your back, you better go and run a good 880. And I ran 150 point and they put me in the eight. And I came in with the slowest PR of all the 800-meter runners. And to see 8,000 people packed in at to see the Ducks. And of course, we started off the meet terrible. We dropped the stick in the 4x1. Prefontaine leads a 1-2-3 sweep in the mile. My roommate at the time, Gordon Ennis from Upland High School, in his first ever steeplechase runs 9:04, which was extraordinary to be able to run that fast as a freshman. And so when it came time for me to get on the track, I'm hearing the announcer call all these stats about every guy. And the night before, they talked about the dope sheet and they scored the meet. And they were saying, well, it's everybody gets to score on this crazy European schedule, scoring schedule. And they said, well, what about Veney? He says, well, I figure Veney will probably get a point. He might get a point. There are 8 guys in the race. I figure he'll be eighth. And, and Hal Harkness, he says, Tony, just run the race we've talked about. And we put it out on the track. And I got into lane 8 and they had announced everybody's stats. They talked about Steve Bentz, the Duck, and they said Steve's dad works here, his mom's here, he's a great runner, he's all this. And then they said, and in lane 8, Tony Veney. That was it. So I could have sort of jogged out onto the track and cut in and took the lead and never gave it up. And I went from 150.7 down to 149.6, won the race, and the place went mad. I mean, I could not believe that they cheered for me the way they did. They made, Hal pushed me out on the track, says take a victory lap. But I don't think people realize how great Prefontaine was when I'm warming up for the mile and Pre comes jogging into the stadium and it just started to swell. Pre, 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 Pre. And it just got louder and louder and louder. And he ran 3:56. He ran 13:10 for 3 miles. And you have to understand that that's when it was just men. So take whatever recovery you have today and cut it in half.
Wow.
And it was extraordinary. So the next morning, me and our guys, we were going to go out for a little jog before the bus leaves. And there's a knock on the door, and it's Prefontaine. And he's got the Oregon registered guard, and on the inside front page is me like this, winning the 880-yard race.
Wow.
And in it, I still have the newspaper article from that. It's all yellow, but it still has, you can still barely read it. And Steve Bentz, who was the favorite to win, said, I guess I'm going to have to put Veney on my hit list for the Pac 8s. And Prefontaine took us out for a little run around the neighborhood, and we went. And see, back then, Sunday paper was only 25 cents. I had a handful of change, and we ran through the area opening up. Now I know this statute of limitations probably run out by now, but we were opening the where the papers were, and we were just grabbing all the papers and running back to the hotel so I could have like 10, 15 copies. My mother was snipping them out and sending them back to family in Pennsylvania and Virginia, in Alabama, in New Orleans. She was as proud as anybody could have been, and was my number one greatest fan. But being in Oregon and hearing the cheering and talking to Prefontaine, I never met an athlete more driven in my entire life than that guy, who was just, and his tempo runs were my all out runs. And we were out on the streets running with him. And I said, why don't we slow down so we can catch this next light? Because I needed a blow. And finally, I just looked at my watch. I said, Pre, I got to get back, take a shower because we're leaving soon.